Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great podcast. And of course, we always have all the best audiences and all the best guests on. The best. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We certainly appreciate you guys as an audience. Be sure to tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, refer it to people, to go to iTunes, Google Play, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, and you can see all sorts of great reviews we do there as well, and puppy videos. We have Siberian puppy videos. Like, who can say no to that for reals? If you don't subscribe to the puppy might die. So save the puppy and subscribe. That's a horrible, macabre way to start this podcast, isn't it? But, I mean, seriously, you subscribe to this thing. What were you thinking you were getting anyway? Anyway, I have a wonderful guest all the way from down under, Australia, Ronan, Leonard. And Ronan is the mastermind guy. He connects small business owners to support groups, the innovative concept of masterminds. Without a founder or a business coach, most solo entrepreneurs are often overwhelmed with to-do lists. They need impartial advice to get the right support to help them achieve clarity and better results. Ronan believes we've lost our connection to the Tribe A community that will help you solve your problems and accelerate your learning. And he believes there is more value in making a real peer-to-peer connections than paying external contractors that have no vested interest in your success. Ronan, welcome to the show. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thank you for having me on the show. Looking forward to it.
Sounds good. Are you guys approaching winter there in the down under nether regions there?
the nether regions is somewhere else, but yes. So it's coming into winter here. But it's all relative. Australia is pretty warm overall, so it's not the sort of New York cold that you see in the US.
Do you guys get snow there?
Certain very small places, couple of the high altitude ones, but. Yeah, we don't get the huge difference that you get in the US between winter and summer. But yes, it is coming into winter. And we're also a day ahead of you. So we're actually going into the future with this show.
Yeah, so when the world goes to hell, you guys get a front row seat. That's awesome. And most likely, if the world does go to hell, it will be because of us Americans. So enjoy the ride.
Well, we'll blame you when it actually happens.
The front row of the apocalypse. So, Ronan, give us your plugs. Tell us where people can find you and your websites on the internet.
So the website is Eccountability.io. So it's accountability, but with an E, and it's an IO extension, not a .com. So I'm quite hard to find. I'm also very active on LinkedIn as well, just Ronan Leonard, the mastermind guy. Also on Twitter as well, Eccountability.
Cool, Eccountability. So tell us about that company. What does it do, and what do you do with it?
Well, effectively, we connect people together in peer mentors. I believe that there is no one guru that's going to solve all your problems. I also think that people buy these courses that they never ever finish. You know, they spend $5,000 on a course, and at the time they're super motivated, they're convinced they're going to do it, and then within a couple of weeks they drop out. But they've already spent their money, so the course owner doesn't really care and has no vested interest whether they finish or not. So I really connect people that don't have a co-founder or they don't have a business coach already, and they just want to work on their roadblocks. What are they currently facing? It's ever changing. And the reality is that information doesn't help us solve all our problems. We live in the information age now. There's massive amounts of it on the internet about everything you need to know about business, yet we're still failing at the same rate. So clearly it's not the amount of information, is that information relevant to me? Can I get some help just in connecting the dots? So what does that information mean to my particular business? Because it's quite generic and it was built or it was written with somebody else in mind, somebody else's experience. So we just crowdsource everybody else's experience, expertise, knowledge, and ideas, and help everybody within that group grow and stick to their goals and their accountability. That's it in a nutshell.
Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. So I imagine you have a lot of experience in business and life and everything else.
I've been in small business myself for 14 years, but I've come to the mastermind concept quite late in life. And I've done everything. I've worked on cruise ships, worked on a ship that sunk on the wild coast of South Africa. I've traveled the world for nearly a decade, lived in India for a while, just hanging around on a beach doing nothing. But for the last 14 years, I've been in small business, running my own small business.
Huh? Cool. So what prompted you to start this company? Ronan, what prompted you to start this company?
I was in a mastermind group about 2, 3 years ago, and I just loved the accountability. I loved the connections, because I'd spent almost a decade in business, and the only sounding board I had was my wife. And she's clued up, she's smart, she works in corporate, but when you're unloading on the same person all the time, I've got this problem and that problem, it becomes a little bit much for the marriage, and it's just not that diversity. So when I was in this mastermind group, absolutely loved it. And then when it finished, it just ran its natural course. I went to join another one, and I just couldn't find one anywhere. Most masterminds have always been an adjunct to somebody's course. So it might be LinkedIn sales training. It might be how you do copywriting. And we've got a mastermind course at the end of that you pay extra for, and you join that group. But there wasn't a general one that you could easily sort of search and join. So like a lot of entrepreneurs, I built it mainly to scratch my own itch and just to connect to smart other people that can help me. So that's how the business model came about.
Yeah, building, that seems to be the way most entrepreneurs start their businesses, scratching an itch. So there's something that bothers them or something that they need fulfilled, and they find that they have a common sort of thread that runs through our humanity, and we also there's usually a lot of other people that are suffering from the same problems.
Yes, there is a twofold double-edged sword with that, in the fact that you can build something that scratches your own itch and no one else wants it. So that's the downside, that you invest all your life savings. I was watching Shark Tank a couple of months ago, and this guy from Australia had spent $250,000 building this software that works out which of your cell phones are private and which ones are business. Now, here in Australia, you just go to the accountant and say, look, my bill is $80 a month. It's about 70%, and they'll take a 70% number. They don't need to work out the exact figure. So he spent all this money without asking 2 or 3 people, would you pay for that? And they were going, no, I wouldn't, because my accountant just works out the number as a percentage, done, 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's always good to do focus groups, because one person's, one person's gold is another person's trash, I suppose, sometimes. But yeah, I mean, you do have to do your research and say, well, I love this idea for myself, but will other people buy it? And certainly they're in the trash heap of entrepreneurialistic ideas and companies. It's full, like you say. The failure rate, I think, is still 99, 98% within the first 2 years of a startup business, which is kind of surprising to me. That number hasn't changed. Maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe I should think about that statement more. But in reality, I mean, in the 90s, I created businesses that were brick and mortar and had to earn a profit very quickly. I didn't create these startups where I have, multi-billion-dollar VCs handing me money and not caring if I don't make a profit for 10 years. And the hard cost of starting a business in brick and mortar is just staggering. I mean, we have to buy phone systems, furniture, secretaries up front. We'd have to call the phone company and negotiate rates and bring in this whole bank of lines, and they'd they have to send the phone company truck by, and they'd spend a week laying our line or whatever the hell it was we needed. And it was just extraordinary. I mean, just to open the door and say, we're in business. You used to have to wait sometimes a week, at least 2 to 4 days before your business line would get active, and it was a nightmare of what you could do. Nowadays, I mean, so much stuff is done virtually without all that stuff. I mean, I've been loving business since I left brick and mortar businesses, where you can just start a business online and away you go. You're making money. So, it's something that's pretty freaking awesome when it comes down to it. And I think, so I'm kind of surprised there's more failures, but maybe it's because the ease of entry is easier to get into. People are still failing at an incredible rate because they're not having to work as hard to make sure that the investments they're making are going to get the return they want.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have the skin in the game. You were talking about building that bricks and mortar business. You would have sunk a lot of money into it up front, but also, as you said, you would have worked damn hard to make it work.
Worked damn hard to make sure that's like hard. That reminds me of the story of the kid who tries to borrow money from his dad, and his dad keeps throwing the money in the fire, and then he finally goes and gets a job. And the day that his dad throws the money that he kept borrowing from his family, but then he worked for into the fire, he goes into the fire for it. And yeah, I remember living at my office, going home to shower and change my clothes, and then going back to my office. And at one point, I actually talked to my business partners about installing a shower in my office, so I didn't have to bother going home anymore. Yeah, when you're committed, I know what it's like to be 1 year of not making a profit, and you're in debt. Thankfully, we were in debt to ourselves from one of our other companies that loaned the money to the other company. But still, we were running a huge negative balance that had to be repaid. On top of that, somehow we had to return a profit in the second year. And I know how sweaty that was to try and come out of that. And it can be hard and difficult. But yeah, so I'm surprised. But yeah, I imagine a lot of people are, it does give, I think, the internet people a lot more chances to fail fast. They can try an idea, and if it fails, then they're not out all that skin in the game, that massive investment. And it gives them probably a chance to restart and reshift and give it another shot without losing all their marbles and having to rebuild again.
Yeah, it comes down to whether A, they've learned their lesson, or B, whether they are really, I think they need to dial into their why. I think a lot of people start a business for an idea that they will make money. And that's what's sold on the internet, have the Ferrari, have the house, have this other lifestyle. And then you probably know yourself, Chris, you've been around the block a bit now, and you've learned those lessons, is that a lot of it is your intrinsic motivation, your why. Why are you doing this? What's your purpose? Are you really solving a customer's problem? Do you love that feeling of actually completing whatever job you do or whatever service you do, and knowing that you've done the best you can and made an awesome product or really helped somebody? Because business is just about helping people. And a lot of people start a business without that. And then obviously when it gets a little bit tough, that motivation and that why just isn't there for them. So it's easy for them to just close the doors or switch off the website and just go, no, this was a bit too hard because I hadn't really thought it through and it's not really what I want to do.
Yeah, and the perfilation of a lot of these websites and businesses, and I see it all the time on Facebook ads. I can show you how to make millions of dollars on YouTube, and you're just like, I have a YouTube and I'm fairly successful. I think I have over 50 or 60 million minutes viewed on YouTube. There's over 3,000 videos on YouTube, and the podcast as well. Plug, shameless plug. And it's really hard to make money on YouTube these days. There was a time where it was very easy to make money on YouTube. Now it's really hard because of the way they've re-geared it. But I think the average user makes about $1,500 a month. And that's kind of like the top sort of area of the average user. And the guys at the very top, they built a two-tiered system where the rich get richer and the poor get poor on YouTube. I think it started about 2014. But there's lots of examples of these things where people get sold to make lots of money, and I think too a lot of the stuff out there is designed. It's kind of like motivational books. They sell you a motivational book. You were talking about this earlier. They sell you a motivational book, and people buy the book hoping that will fulfill them in starting a business and getting rich. The problem is they never read the book or go forward with it, and they just keep going and buying new books. It's the fulfillment of the person who never reads books, thinking that, well, I'm buying the knowledge, so therefore I'm acquiring it through acquisition.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You can drop $2,000 and go and see Tony Robbins for the day, and you come away, ooh, I'm highly motivated. And it maybe lasts a week for most people. That's it. It's not life changing. They just go back to their same routines and same habits. So in the mastermind group, we try and teach people every week to sort of make those small incremental changes and just stick to the plan and just keep on the right path. And is that the right path, and get that advice and feedback and make those small adjustments, rather than thinking there is one course, one book, one guru that is going to change you overnight, and all of a sudden you're going to be this super rich, super motivated, know exactly what you're doing, got it all figured out. But unfortunately, the 10x your business now, as you said, I'll show you how to make millions. That's the clickbait that sells. and they're just suckering people in that really don't have the tools or the follow-up process to implement most of those ideas.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're paying $5,000 for a giant program or whatever, some sort of upscale resale program, I have my own mastermind stuff that I do, so I'm knocking myself here. But my first company I started with $2,000, and we built that into a multi-million-dollar company. A year and a half later, we started a second company with $4,000 that we were supposed to give to the IRS, and we opted for a penalty. I think if I recall rightly, what it was is we bet the IRS money. We owed the IRS money like at the end of the quarter, beginning of the quarter, and we gambled that we would be able to replace that money by the end of the quarter to give the IRS. That's what we did. So we were literally just betting that we would get that money and back, and we did, and we built that into a second multi-million-dollar company. We at one point had a tier of a multitude of different companies that we owned and ran, and so just that small amount of money, we built multi-million-dollar companies, and a lot of sweat equity, I should say, as well. But those were brick and mortar companies back in the day.
Yeah, well, gambling against the IRS versus a loan shark was probably the lesser of two evils. You probably figure, like, okay, the government will give me a break. it's a slightly.
I'm not sure I'd always recommend it ever, but I mean, it was the quarterly payment that you have to take and make, and we knew that we had to make it in 3 months, and we were like, can we make sure that we get that money back so we can pay at the end of the third month? And so that was our little gamble. But yeah, I mean, that small money started business, and certainly that was in the brick and mortar era where we had to spend some money to open an office and everything. But I mean, on the internet, you can do so much different things. One of the things that you're doing, I recommended this years ago. After about 13 years in business, my best friend and business partner left our company. He got really burnt out with entrepreneurism and just wanted to go work for a normal paycheck. And I found myself alone in the business, and we didn't have a board of directors. We didn't have anybody I could turn to. I didn't have any Michael Cohen lawyers. What I did is I came with this concept because I didn't have my partner anymore that could bounce ideas off of. So I came with this concept of a virtual board. And so instead of paying board members and hiring a board, I took and found other entrepreneurs and made them what I called virtual board members. And I basically just made a deal with them. Look, I'll listen to your ideas, concepts, and things you're trying to do with your business if you'll listen to mine. And that worked out really well because it gave me other entrepreneurs I could bounce stuff off of. They could call me up and bounce stuff off of, and it didn't cost me a bloody dime. So that was working out really well. It sounds like what you're doing with the e-business is basically creating a mastermind that people can take and use so they can convey their own sort of board of directors. Absolutely,
yeah. It's a very, very similar concept. It's not rocket science. It's not a particularly new concept. It's just a bit more at scale. And as we're globally connected now, it's one of those things where my mastermind groups, I've got people from the US, the UK, Australia, Malaysia. So they all connect together, and you've got different personalities. You've got that different life experience. People do different business in America, different to Australia. We're a bit more conservative, more laid back. Americans a bit more gung ho. Yeah, let's buy that now. So you get that true melting pot of the mastermind concept, which is Napoleon Hill's one. So yeah, you've already figured that out yourself, and congratulations. Why pay some external consultant thousands of dollars to give you a little bit of advice when you can swap around and utilize your business knowledge? As you said, you'd had 13 years worth of experience. That's a great amount of insight and knowledge. And you've talked about how you almost went bust, and you've done the hard yards, and you're able to sort of pay that experience forward. Everyone talks about this, failure, and when we fail, we learn all these lessons. Ideally, you don't want to have to be in that position of lost all your money and failed and learned the hard way. Tap into the people that have done there and be there and pick their brains before you get to that point. So the really smart people will listen to somebody who's already failed rather than fail themselves first. It's a cheaper route, to be honest.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely much cheaper. So what are some other life lessons you've learned as you've gone through the years of starting your own business and doing your own things?
I've learned that there's a huge disconnect between what people will say and what they end up doing. And I'm not really even sure how to bridge that gap. You know, the world's full of, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And for me, that's quite strange, because I'm actually really good at habits and motivation. And I worked out a couple of years ago, what's my unique genius? And it's as simple as saying that I'll do what I say I'm going to do. And it sounds really dull and it sounds really boring, but the world is just full of people that, yeah, I'll get back to you on Tuesday, and then they don't. And then you find out, oh yeah, sorry, something come up, I'll get back to you next week. And then you never hear from them again. So, well, you know, just own it. And when you own it and you create that self-belief in yourself, which makes you push further and harder, but also people want to work with you. If you're the type of person that shows up on time, like I did today, this podcast, that says I'm going to do something, those people, you gravitate towards them, because you know, there are a lot of snake oil sharp, you know, a lot of people out there in the world that promise everything and deliver next to nothing. So I also look for those type of people, the people that share the commitment. That's one of the things that I'm sort of really interested in, and I gravitate towards those type of people.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Sorry to interrupt you there.
What about you, Chris? What sort of people sort of in your wheelhouse?
You bring up something that I experienced a lot as an entrepreneur and still do, but it used to be worse back in the days when, you know, I had lots of employees, and you know, a lot of people were, there was a lot of pressure on me to take care of these people. But as an entrepreneur, you don't have a lot of time to screw around. I mean, you don't, like you say, you got to get things done, and it all comes down to you. And the biggest challenge I would have is dealing with corporations or employees of corporations who would drag their feet, like you say, and, you know, oh, I'll get to it, you know, and a lot of times they don't have a direct accountability. You know, they have a guaranteed paycheck at the end of every Friday or whatever their schedule is, but they have a guaranteed paycheck. Whether if they sit around and watch, I don't know, cat videos on YouTube all week, most likely they're still going to have that paycheck at the end of the week, you know. With me, I can't watch cat videos all week, or else at the end of the week, there's nothing there in the bank, and then a lot of people are very unhappy with me. And so one of the big challenges I had at being an entrepreneur was my level of accountability, like what you're talking about, where I've got to get shit done. And other people's level of accountability, where it's like, I get paid anyway, whether I get you done. And, you know, I used to work, one of our companies was a mortgage company. And in the mortgage company, you're literally the big fish, but you live off your feeder fish. And so you've got the title company over here that you live off, the credit company, you've got the appraisal company, you've got the lender that you're selling the notes to, and you're dependent upon these people. And if they don't do their job, then your job doesn't get done. And you've got this orchestra of timelines, and you know, the credit company's got to come first, and then the appraisal's got to get ordered, the title's got to get ordered, and then we need the credit company to verify the credit, and that's going to come in. The appraiser's got to do his job and come in. The title company's got to do their job and come in. The lender's got to process the loan, approve it, and then ask for whatever documents, and then we got to go to the customer and ask for whatever documents. And so you have just this endless, seemingly endless group of people that if they don't do their job and one person isn't doing their job, it just mucks up the whole system. And that's a big challenge that you have. And so I'd encourage other entrepreneurs to surround themselves, like with what you do with your group or whatever, to have other entrepreneurs around them, because nobody knows the pain and hustle of your experience than other entrepreneurs. I mean, you know, I talk to people, I've got friends that they have wives who work for the government, which is an even more guaranteed paycheck. And their wives just do not understand what the hell they have to deal with every day. They have no clue as to the pressure that these guys are under and having to make a buck. But then they're also angry because they make more money than they do working for the government. So
they're never happy. Yeah,
they're like, you don't have a college degree and you make more money than me, but I work for the government and I have a great insurance. But how does that work? Well, that's the reward system. But yeah, surrounding yourself with other like-minded entrepreneurs can really help you out, whether it's meeting on the internet, whether it's doing lunches. Of course, those are getting harder and harder to do. Most people like to do stuff. This is one of the things I like to do, of course, the podcast, because I get to meet wonderful people like yourself and great ideas and people that are interested in innovation and entrepreneurism. So having those sort of things is really important.
Yeah, this boom in entrepreneurism, we're sold this dream that, leave the boss behind, leave the corporate world, and you've got all this freedom. And the reality is the exact opposite, or when I say the discipline that sets you free, because once you sit there in front of your laptop and you go, hey, I'm living the laptop lifestyle now, who's there to kick your butt if you haven't done what you said you're going to do? You set your goal for the week and it's in your head and there's no accountability. There's no manager coming up and saying, look, I need this deadline by Friday. You're your own boss. So you start, as you said, watching cat videos, or you work on the easy stuff that you like without pushing yourself. And that the hard yards is the growth is where you're doing uncomfortable things, whether that is starting something like a podcast, you've never done it before, or cold outreach, or getting on the phone and cold calling people, all those things that will improve your business at the very early stages, or your next growth phase, you can put off because there's just no one there to really sort of give you that extra little push. So this paradox of the freedom, in really it's actually the discipline of going every day. I've got to get up and I've got to work on my highest leverage first. I encourage people all the time, keep working on your highest leverage, because the easy stuff anyone can do. And it feels like you're busy. I've had a really busy week this week. I've done all these things, but you've done the easy stuff. You've done the stuff that doesn't move the needle. You haven't worked on the 80-20 principle, that 80% of your business comes from 20% of your actions. And you haven't looked at that and gone, okay, it's the hard stuff I've got to do. It's the cold calls, it's the cold emails, it's the uncomfortable things. And without that accountability, you'll just drop back into your comfort zone, and you don't get that growth, both personally and in your business, because there just isn't anyone there to hold you accountable at the end of the week and saying, look, you were supposed to do this and you didn't, and there's no one there to stop you. So it is that paradox that, you leave the corporate world because you want to sack the boss, and you end up with no boss, and you end up doing all the fun, cool things that don't make you the money or don't give you the leverage that you really need. Does that resonate?
I agree. I'm a big believer that if you don't control your destiny and someone else does, you're not going to have a very good destiny, most likely.
Yeah, so many business owners just start the day with opening up the inbox and saying, okay, well, let's see what the world has thrown at me as my day, instead of planning it out and going, okay, if I spend the first 2 hours on my marketing that I've been putting off for months, if I spend the first 2 hours on a new product innovation, and then I open up the inbox, and then the world can go to crap, and I can be pulled in all those different directions of all these people want my time and my effort. But most business owners, each and every day, they just start the day with, okay, well, let's see what's going to happen today. And that's a recipe for very little growth, and a recipe for eventually burnout, where you're just not working on your highest leverage.
You just gave me a real tip I should apply to myself that I just realized. I do start every day by reading the inbox. And one of the problems with that, and it's probably the way I have my inbox set up, but I'll kind of scroll through the easy things I can delete really quickly. The news is usually one of them, but one of the problems with the news, especially here in America these days, is we are heading towards our own apocalypse, and you guys have a front row seat to it there in Australia. Is the news is very it captures your attention and draws you in, sucks you in, and I can click a button off a news item that comes in my inbox, and then an hour's gone of me watching videos and reading whatever salacious stories come across our salacious American president, president in quotes, let's put it that way, asterisk. So you're right. I just was thinking as you were saying that, of all the wasted time and how that's diverted me. I should probably set my inbox up separately, where the news, I think Gmail has a way where I can set it up where the news things are put into a different category. And I probably should really think about doing that, because you pointed out a real time waster of mine.
I've got Boomerang on Gmail, so you can pause your inbox, so pause it for 2-4 hours, something like that, and just sort of get back to your hard stuff. I actually stopped watching the news about 3 years ago. A business coach sort of recommended it, and it's been life-changing for me because they sell you those bad luck stories. It's on purpose to get you, as you said, salacious, clickbait, all those things, and the majority of it is completely irrelevant to you. There's so much you can't control. There's so much you have no end result in. They show you a story and then they don't ever follow up. So it's unfinished business, which makes you a little bit more anxious. So I've become really guarded around curating what I want to learn. I'm the same when I'm driving in a car now. I listen to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks. I don't listen to the shock jocks on the radio that have opinion on everything and know nothing, or even the music that, I don't like that track. So I've become much more guarded in how I consume content, and I've made a deliberate choice to say I'm curating my own content. And it's that passivity again we talked about in business. It's the same in life, where I'm not saying sit down in front of the news and feed me what you tell me is relevant. I'm saying I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to start going out looking for things that I enjoy and that are relevant, and are going to pique my curiosity and challenge me, instead of allowing just other people to just tell me all their information, their opinion.
Yeah. In fact, you've now encouraged me. You've influenced me. I'm going to go relook at Gmail's inbox app, and that's the app that puts I think it puts like the news and some of the magazines and stuff into a separate tab, and it tries to parse your stuff, because I realize now, and I've been having this problem since 2016 when we elected some orange monkey to an office that he's not qualified for in any way, shape, or form. Pathological liar, actually. And it's been really hard because the news is always salacious. I mean, geez, we have guys in high office sleeping with porn stars and getting away with it, paying them off. It's, it doesn't get much more salacious than that unless we get video.
That news comes through to Australia as well, and everyone's talking about it a couple of years ago.
Sure. I'm sure we're wasting everyone's time in the world when they see their inbox and we are salacious news. Sorry, world. Yeah. Sorry, world. Trailer Trash America. We're sharing. So yeah, you've given me some good ideas. I'm going to go revisit the inbox. I think it's called the Inbox app by Gmail. Normally, I use my inbox as like a task to-do list, but you've just really identified that I get circumvented and distracted, and then it becomes, that's the problem. You get on the internet, you see like cat video. It's like a puppy raccoon. Chase.
Yeah, well, the reality is, I used to work in casinos. When I worked on cruise ships traveling the world, I used to work in casinos, and social media use the exact same leverage that casinos do. So casinos, when you're playing the slot machines, it's randomized, and it's the flashing lights. So, hey, I've won something. So Facebook have used the exact same thing. Hey, you scroll through and it's just random posts. So you just keep scrolling and scrolling because you never know what's going to come up. Most of it's crap, most of it's irrelevant. And then you get that dopamine hit of, hey, someone liked what I've said, or I've got this message. And it's the exact same system that the casinos use to get you your money. Instead, you're getting this adrenaline and this dopamine of social proof. So the smartest people in the world now work for social media companies to get you to stay longer on their platforms. So don't beat yourself up, Chris. It's a whole industry around deliberately making you time inefficient and keeping you on their platforms for as long as possible. And they've hired the smartest people in the world. So don't beat yourself up. It's just human nature. But when you recognize that, you can start to think, okay, let me put a couple of things in place to stop myself, because otherwise I just can't.
Yeah, in fact, I'm looking right now at Gmail inbox, which is a different thing. And in the past, I've resisted this. I've tried it and gone back, but now I'm actually relooking at it. And yeah, it takes my news crap and puts them into the news crap section. And then it definitely cleans up my inbox and gives me it actually gives me a visual thing. I'm not sure if that might be or not. I'm seeing a cool video here. But yeah, you're right. With Facebook, with those autoplay videos, that they really get you hooked on distraction.
Yeah, and it's a time killer. We set these goals. We've got these big aspirations as entrepreneurs. We want to achieve this. At the end of the year, we want to double our revenue, or whatever your metric is that you set at the start. And then the reality is everybody else in the world is out to take a piece of your time, a little bit of from what you've mentally set out as your goal for the year. So any tool, technique, or trick that keeps you on track, that keeps you focused, that keeps you motivated, that keeps you working towards the goals that you set out. So the more that you can tap into that, and the more you can to live that purpose of what you really want to do, and shut out all those distractions, or work out ways that you can be more productive, more living in the moment, and more engaged in the things that you love. Because the reality is you don't really love cat videos, or most of the news, you get there and you go, oh, that was a complete waste of my time. But as I said, they're pretty good at doing that. So I teach people, and I encourage people, and I show them, because I live it myself, that there is a way to be much more focused, much more goal orientated. You don't have to give up all those things. I'm not saying it's all or nothing. I'm just saying that for most people, they are so distracted, and it's only getting worse. And because we live in this information age where we're bombarded, and everyone's on their phones and they're hooked on them. But those Facebook and YouTube and all those other people are stopping you from achieving your goals if you'll let them. So if your goal is just to spend 20 minutes and get some entertainment, then that's fine. But the reality is most people spend, as you said, you go down that rabbit hole, and next thing an hour's gone. And that's an hour when you could have been landing your next customer. There could have been an hour when you could be reading a book that you really love, and say, I don't have time for that. Yeah. The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that I don't have time. What we're actually saying is that I don't value that enough to spend the time on that. I spend it on something else.
You should really write that down and share that as a quote. That's a brilliant quote right there. I hope you will. Sit down to me. Where are we at right now in the show? We're about 40 minutes in. So if you want to go back and recapture that quote, I think that's a brilliant quote, what you just said. Put it on a shirt. And I probably need that as a sign on my wall. So 40 minutes into the show, that there was your quote, if you want to go back and grab it. Yeah, I mean, that's really, I've gone down wormholes with either the news or watching videos, and sometimes it's doing my own videos that I'm editing or something like that. And then several hours will pass. I'll go back to my inbox, and there's somebody for 3 hours who's been trying to hand me money, and I've been ignoring them. And sometimes it's the end of the day. So by the time they get the chance to talk to me, communicate, and give me money again, it's the next day. So I've lost a whole day of income that I could have done. And sometimes that costs you sales, because that person's like, well, maybe I'll go do something else with my money instead of give it to you. Meanwhile, you're
Chris, tell me a little bit about your masterminds. Who's your masterminds for, and what do you do in that group?
Mostly consulting to give people coaching, help them ask questions, share ideas, concepts that I have for stuff that's doing. Most of mine are fairly small and in their infancy, and we're trying to grow them and build them and all that good stuff. Mostly just sharing data and everything else. If people want to be able to get a question in that they don't have to pay, several $100s an hour to talk to me for, they can get a pop for that. And have it more easily accessible. They can actually have me as a board of directors, so it works out fairly well.
Okay. And how long have they been running?
For a couple of years now. I've had 2 or 3 ones that I've done from 2 or 3 different formats of business things, and mostly they're just open formats. I mean, I don't try and do the whole upscale 5,000. Usually, I'm busy with my own consultancy and my own agency, so I don't spend a lot of time building them and doing things. It's one of those things where you got so much you do, you try and do is what you can with the time that you have. I probably should watch less cat videos.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Most definitely. So, Ronan, give us your plugs for your guys' websites and everything you guys are doing there.
That you learn, because sorry, I lost you there.
Yeah, sorry, we broke up. What was that?
I was asking what's the sort of biggest lesson you learned, because the difference I believe in masterminds is it's a two-way street. There is, I believe, there's seldom the guru. It's peer-to-peer. So everybody's sort of learning from each other. So, you know, in our conversation today, you've already taken a couple of nuggets. What do you learn from the groups?
It's pretty interesting what people's questions are and what they're dealing with and what they're doing. And, you know, it's one of those things too, where sometimes you're the teacher, and as the teacher, you become the student. So a lot of times or they remind you of something that you need to go back to and get back to basics. As the great basketball coaches say, go back to basics. And you sometimes learn from them. So bouncing back ideas. And that's one of the great things, like I said, about maybe using a service like yours or having your own virtual board of directors, as that makes it so you can bounce ideas off of. Because like you said earlier in the show, sometimes you come with ideas that sound really cool to you, but they really stink to the rest of the world. So having those sort of resources really make a difference.
Yeah, the difference between success and failure often is turning a good idea into a great idea. And that just takes, you know, a left field, a bit of advice from somebody. It's just, and then also we already know half this stuff, but it's buried down. And you just talked about it now, where you used to do your inbox and you'll go back to that. We've learned so much stuff and then we've forgotten it, and it just bubbles back up and go, okay, that used to work for me. Why the hell did I stop doing that? It's not even teaching something new sometimes. It's just reaffirming stuff that you know and you've forgotten and you've stopped doing.
Yep, sounds good. I've got to go corral a puppy, Ronan, so I'm going to wrap the show. So give us your plugs and everything else so people can look you up on the interwebs.
Well, I'm always available on LinkedIn. It's one of my favorite channels just because there isn't all that distraction. So LinkedIn, it's Ronan Leonard. Eccountability.io for the mastermind platform, and on Twitter I am Eccountability.
Sounds good, Ronan. And everyone go check him out. I've got to go chase down a puppy. Sounds like he's crying for me. We certainly appreciate you guys subscribing to the show. Make sure you subscribe, or the puppy, you know, won't get enough treats or something. I don't know. Go to Google Play, go to iTunes, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Thanks for everyone tuning in the show. You guys are a wonderful audience, and see you next time.